Hey guys, welcome back to Tiercer. Chef Austin here. We are celebrating Seabasss today, so we're going to be using dairy, or at least you're going to be using dairy. We're going to be using some faux dairy, but it's still going to be fun, right? So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing a sea bass. We're going to be using some amazing locally line caught white sea bass, nice crispy skin. We're going to be making a parmesan and black truffle velouté. We're going to be making a crispy gnocchi that we're going to be frying so it has some nice texture. And then to add some more texture to it, we're going to be doing some crispy kale. It's going to be super fun. This is a pretty fun dish. Needs a little bit of prep time if you want to kind of make things excellent, but can certainly be done really quickly. So two things that we need to do in the very beginning. One is get our potatoes ready. So we have some Yukon Gold potatoes. We put them on a bed of salt, and we're just going to throw those into a 400-degree oven for about 45 minutes, just until they have become soft all the way through. Reason why we do a bed of salt is to keep things as dry as possible. We're trying to introduce the least amount of water possible. Less water means less flour, which means fluffier gnocchi, right? So those are going to be roasting. Next, we have our amazing sea bass here. We've butchered it and we've scored it. And then we are just going to make sure everything is dry. Crispy skin, you need dry fish. So we've dried everything off. We've scored the skin. And then we're just going to liberally salt the skin, trying to keep it on the skin, not on the flesh of the fish. Reason being, we are going to wipe all of this salt away, or at least as much of it as we can. But what that's going to do is it's going to draw out as much water as possible from that skin, which is going to give us the crispiest possible product that we can. So we're going to let this sit for basically the entire time that those potatoes are going, and we're going to put those right in our fridge so they stay nice and cold. Let's do our kale, right? So here I just have a sheet pan and 2 racks. Now you can, if you have a deep fryer, right, like we do, you can certainly do these in the fryer. But since this is going to be more of a garnish item, I like to do it on a sheet pan with a rack. We put another rack on top, which keeps the leads nice and flat. And that way we can kind of just pick and choose where they go. So I do want to point out this kale to you. It's not, your ordinary kale. This is a Savoy kale. And if you can see, it's absolutely gorgeous. This like green and purple veins running through it. So what we're going to do is take some extra virgin olive oil, brush both sides of each leaf, place them on our rack, rinse and repeat, right? We're going to try our best to preserve this color as much as we can. So we're going to go low and slow. Rather than blasting it at like 400 degrees with our potatoes, we're going to put it at 300 and just check on it every so often. You let it go, it'll get nice and crispy, but it'll turn brown, and we're trying to, since it's so pretty, we want to preserve that color. So then we're just going to take some kosher salt. We always sprinkle whenever we're, rather than down here, always from up high, and that way we can get an even distribution of salt. We're going to take another rack, turn it upside down, right on top, so it kind of presses those leaves flat as they bake. And that's going to go in our oven here. We're going to check on it in 8 minutes, see where we're at. Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes. You've been hanging out. So we're going to take our gnocchi out of the oven. So you see they've obviously changed color a bit. And when we take a paring knife and insert it, it just comes out super clean, goes in and out real smooth. So those are hot, but they are done. We are going to let these kind of rest out for a little bit, just to cool down so you don't burn your hands. And while we wait for those, we can start on our sauce. Let's do that. All right, so we're going to take 2 shallots And you don't really need to worry too much about your knife cuts on this, because with the sauce at the end, we're going to take an immersion blender and make sure that everything is nice and smooth. And then we're also going to, after that, strain the sauce. So we're just going for a kind of a small dice here. All right, so into our pan, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of butter. All right, so our potatoes have cooled a bit. We're just gonna take a paring knife and peel these. Our next piece of equipment, this isn't like you must have this piece of equipment, right? But this is called a ricer, and it's gonna make our potatoes even, so we have no lumps at all when we're putting our gnocchi together. Now you can get one large like this. They make them much smaller for home use. And they even make handheld ones where you can just kind of press the potatoes through. One thing I will mention, while we did allow these potatoes to cool down, just know that if you can see, they're still steaming, right? They're still hot. They're just cool enough to touch. We don't want to really work with cold potatoes when making gnocchi, because it can make a gummy end result, which can be, gummy and chewy and not nice and light and airy and fluffy. So what this is doing, just so you can see, it's pushing everything through. So it's a nice, even, consistent. All right, so we're gonna take some flour, dust our bench, and on the potatoes go. Now this is a pretty easy recipe. It's just potatoes. It's hard to give you I'm in the recipe, you're gonna have an exact ratio. But just know, you might have to add a little more egg. You might have to add a little more flour. Pasta is such something that is to touch, to feel, right? You're going for a consistency that holds together and doesn't stick to your hands. All right, so we're gonna add in our egg yolks. This is about 4 egg yolks. We did 4 pounds of potatoes. We're gonna do 4 egg yolks. We're gonna do a good sized pinch of kosher salt. Remember, it's potatoes, it can take a lot of salt. That's probably a tablespoon of salt. And then we added a lot of salt to our water as well. Whenever you're doing any sort of pasta, you wanna use boiling salted water. And you want it to taste like the sea. That's kind of the amount that you should be using. So our dough is holding together, but it's not sticking to my hands anymore. Which is perfect and exactly what we want. All right, so we're gonna cut this into some manageable pieces. And the rest of our flour here, we're just gonna use as, clean up our station real fast. Rest of our flour here, we're just gonna use as bench flour. You can make these guys as big or as small as you want. But you're just gonna roll them into a rope. Using your bench knife. Cut them into pieces. Give them a nice dusting of flour. Perfect. Rinse, and then we're gonna put them on a sheet pan. Nice and light and fluffy. We didn't overwork them with the flour. They're nice and coated, so they're not sticking together, which is perfect. All right, so at this point, we're done. Well, we're not done with the gnocchi, right? At this point, you can do this a day ahead. You can do this a few hours ahead, because what we're going to do right now is boil them, take them out, let them chill, and then for service, because we're going to make them nice and crispy, then we're going to fry them. You can either pan fry them or deep fry them. In our case, we're going to deep fry them, just because we have that available to us. But pan frying them in a little bit of olive oil or butter, even like some brown butter, would be fantastic, just so they get a nice little crispy edge to them. All right, so our gnocchi are going into the water, and we're just going to cook these just until they start to float. And then when they start to float, they are done. All right, so some of our gnocchi have started to float, so we're going to just quickly pull them straight into an ice bath to stop the cooking process. And we're not going to leave them in there for too long, because we don't want them to continue to soak up that water. But we do want them to cool down completely. And then we have another little sheet tray here ready for us with some extra virgin olive oil. So one tip, trick, take with a grain of salt. But always, in my opinion, always use much more water than you think that you're going to need when you're cooking pasta. Reason being, as soon as you put the pasta in, it's going to drop the temperature of the water, and if you have more hot water, it'll come back to a boil faster rather than your pasta sitting in now lukewarm water, right? Okay, so our gnocchi are done. We're going to set them to the side because we're going to use them pretty soon here. But for you at home, again, if you make this a day or so ahead of time, or a few hours ahead of time, and you don't want things, sitting at room temperature, we're just going to coat these in oil, and then you can just quickly pop these in the fridge, and then utilize them whenever. If you're going to use them the next couple hours, leave them uncovered. You'll be fine. But if you are going to wait a day, I would certainly cover them so they don't absorb the flavor of the fridge, right? Alrighty. So what is food without wine? At least, especially here, right? So with our Seabasss and our nice rich sauce and our gnocchi, we're gonna pair this with our Special Reserve Chenin Blanc. Super nice, has a bit of oak on it, has some really nice acid. I think it's gonna be fantastic. Yeah, that's gonna work. Kale, right? We've had our kale in the oven. I've had it at 300 with no fan, so there's no convection on this. And I think it might be perfect. See. Sounds crispy. Oh yeah. See if you can hear the crispy. Perfect. And because we did it that low and slow, we were able to maintain as much of that color as we can, which is going to be great for our plate up, for our garnish. Perfect. So we'll leave that to the side, let that cool down. All right, and on to our sauce. So into a pot, we put 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to add 3 cloves of garlic and 2 shallots. So when we're cooking this, we're not looking for any color on this at all. We are just going to sweat them until they become translucent. This is would be considered a white sauce, right? Our velouté. So we don't really want to incorporate any color. The only color that I want in this at the end is going to be our truffle, because we're using black truffle. So I want you to be able to see that they're in there. All right, so our veg has started to become translucent. Next, we're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour to make our roux. All right, this is what's gonna make our sauce thicken. And we're gonna cook this over medium high heat, just for about 30 seconds, just to cook that raw flavor out of the flour. All right. So next, you know, always cook with what you're drinking, right? So we're gonna add just about 4 ounces of our wine. We're also going to add 8 ounces or a cup of some really nice high quality fish stock that we've made. We're gonna let this come up to a simmer. And then for you at home, you're gonna add a cup of heavy cream to this, but here we're gonna use cashew cream, right? So it's come up to a simmer. Now we're gonna add a cup of our cream. Next, we're gonna season with some kosher salt. And remember I said this is a white sauce, so we don't use black pepper, we use white pepper. Be careful when using white pepper. You don't need as much as you think. You use too much and it can start to taste a little funky almost. All right, so I'm just looking at the consistency of my sauce, and I think I'm gonna add another 4 ounces of fish stock. Fun thing about homemade cashew cream, when you heat it up, it starts to thicken a bit. So we're just gonna thin our sauce out. So we'll bring our sauce quickly up to a simmer. I think it's seasoned pretty well. Then to this, we are going to add our cheese. Now this is a vegan Parmesan cheese. Please use a nice aged cheese at home. It'll be much, much better. So we're just gonna stir this in until it melts and fully incorporates. All right, so at this point, it is totally up to you as to what you would like to do. I don't like to strain out the garlic and the shallots because, you know, just it's extra flavor. So I would prefer to blend them. So I'm gonna use an immersion blender. We're gonna blend up our sauce. All right, so we're gonna take our sauce, and now that we have most of it all blended up, we're gonna pass it through a kind of a fine mesh strainer. And we've set this up in a bain-marie so we can keep things warm while we cook our fish and kind of finish off all of our dishes. Again, this is something at home that you definitely do not have to do. This is just gonna add a little bit more elegance to your dish. All right, fantastic. We're gonna keep this over here on a low flame, just so it stays nice and warm. So last thing that we're gonna add to this is our truffle. This is Tuscanini minced black truffle that we're adding. And we are also going to kind of balance this out. It's very rich, right, with the cream. It also has that fish flavor. So what goes better with that than a little bit of lemon? Now, consistency-wise, I just want to show you, we call this nappe, right? So it coats the back of a spoon, and it doesn't run, and that's kind of the consistency that we're looking for. That's delicious. Okay, I'm really excited. And it's a banger with the wine. I'm stoked. Okay, sweet. Let's get on to the fun part, right? So our fish. So our fish has been chilling about 45 minutes to an hour now after our gnocchi's done and all that good stuff. So we're gonna take our paper towels here and we're gonna try to dry these off as much as we possibly can. Now, before I added that salt, I had already dried these so much so that, you know, there was no liquid coming through at all. And you can see how much more water that the salt has drawn out from that skin. Now, if you don't like crispy skin, that's fine. If you don't like skin on your fish, totally understand. But if you do, make sure to ask your fishmonger if you can to scale it for you. And that way you can give your fish these nice, if you have a nice sharp knife, you can score the skin, which is A, gonna look really pretty when it's done, but B, it helps the fish when it's in the hot pan to stop curling on you, right? You'll make it nice and even and crispy. We are gonna be using a nice heavy bottomed carbon steel pan for this. I like carbon steel or cast iron for this. You can certainly use stainless if you want, just as long as it has that heavy bottom because you want it to retain that heat. So we're going to heat this up. A bit of neutral flavored oil with a high smoke point because you want to get this thing ripping hot. Something like, you know, canola, peanut, avocado oil. That's what I use at home. All right, so here we're going to be working in batches. We have our fish that's all ready to go. All right, you can see that our oil, I don't know if you can see, but I can see the oil is nice and shiny, just barely starting to smoke. Making sure to place the fish down and put away from you. That way, if you do end up having to drop it, at least you're splashing oil away from you and not onto you, right? So making sure to give that fish just a little bit of a press for about 10 seconds a piece, just to prevent any curling of that skin, right? Now, when this fish is ready, it will release on its own. So if you're moving it around and you're finding that it is stuck, don't touch it. You want this to cook like 60% skin side down. Okay, so our fish, you can see, if you can see on the cameras, it's starting to creep up, kind of that cooked, nice bright white from our white sea bass starting to creep up. Once it gets halfway, we're going to flip it. We're going to add in a knob of butter and some thyme and finish the fish in the pan while kind of just facing. We're also going to add a little bit of crushed garlic as well. All right, so while our fish is going, we're just going to take some garlic cloves. These are already peeled. You don't have to peel them. That's the great part about adding it when you're basting, right? Because we're not actually going to use these in our finished products. It's just going to be to flavor our butter. And so we're just going to give them a nice crush so they stay intact. Season the underside of our fillets. With a beautiful, nice crispy skin. Now we're going to add in our butter. Turn our flame down a little bit. Add in our butter, add in our garlic. Add in some nice fresh thyme. And just like you would with any nice steak, right, is how we're gonna finish this fish off. And because these are some pretty thick fillets, we're gonna put this into our oven just for about 4 minutes so that heat can evenly penetrate the fish and it's not just coming from one side, right? So while that is finishing, we're kind of on crunch time now. We're gonna grab some of our plates. Place these in our oven. Hot food, hot plate, right? We're gonna take our gnocchi. And again, at home, if you wanna cook this in brown butter, please do it. It'll be delicious. But we don't really have that option here. So we are going to fry these. We're gonna fry these so they're nice and crispy on the outside and nice little pillows on the inside. Yum. All right, so you can see our gnocchi has kind of taken on that nice golden brown. Think of it like another version of a French fry almost. We're just gonna season these with some salt. Perfect. So one thing I will mention, if you do choose to use this fish for this dish, sea bass, white sea bass, just like halibut, is a very lean fish. So do your best to not overcook it. Otherwise, it dries out very fast. It is much less forgiving than something like salmon or black cod that has a lot of fat. So to plate, we're going to take some of our velouté. Right in the bottom of the bowl. Next, we'll take our gnocchi. And then we're just going to finish this with a little bit of lemon juice, a few tarragon leaves. And lastly, we can't forget about our beautiful crispy kale. A little salt. So there you have it. Crispy gnocchi, truffle parmesan velouté, some nice crispy kale chips, and a perfectly seared white sea bass. And then obviously our delicious wine. And I think that it's time to tuck in, right? I feel like we got to try this. Crazy flavorful. Wow. I think that's going on the menu. Yeah, that's delicious. Perfectly pairs with the wine. The wine has the right amount of acidity, kind of cut through the richness of the sauce. The texture from the gnocchi and the skin is incredible. And you know, I didn't overcook the fish. I'll give myself a pat on the back for that. Fantastic. I really hope you guys make this at home. It is, it's gonna go on. It's gonna go on the menu. Yeah, if you don't make it at home, come join us here, and in the next week it'll be on the menu for sure. I hope to see you soon. See you next time. Have a good one.